37.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Time for This Week in Groove Guide with Sam Wicks. The final This Week in Groove Guide. Or is it? Well, we don't know. We're going to find out. We're going to get some questions perhaps answered from Sam this morning about why this week is the last edition of Groove Guide. Hello, Sam. And,
Hello.
And commiserations, I suppose.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, it's no fun fronting something like this. Myself and Emily Gavorko, the brand manager for Groove Guide, you know, Monday in particular is it's kind of nasty once it hits, I guess, social networking.
Yeah.
Your phone starts ringing the whole day and the emails come through and you just have to deal with it as best you can, you know.
Yeah, so a press release eventually did come out from Tangible Media, who own Groove Guide, and Vincent Herringer being the spokesperson there, saying that, well, it just hasn't worked. The advertising dollars haven't been there for the weekly guide. Of course, this comes on top of the Groove Guide, which was a monthly magazine.
Real Groove.
Real Groove. Real Groove. That was the monthly magazine that you were the editor of.
Yes, yeah.
And Groove Guide was always there as well.
So it was a brother-sister scenario.
Yeah.
So the Real Groove was the tome, was the monthly that you hung on to, and Groove Guide was always street press, you know, so it could be much sort of lighter on its toes and respond to what was happening in the country week to week. And we merged after the end of Real Groove. We doubled the size. We took on the writers from Real Groove as an amalgamation of both teams. And I think really successfully, you know, took on the best of what both mags were about.
And the excuse for Real Groove failing at the end of last year was the same excuse that's now being used for Groove Guide.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, when that was put to me with Real Groove, you know, is there a place for a monthly magazine in New Zealand? I believe that there is, but it's a harder one to fight for. But the place of street press, I believe, street press is a vital part of any kind of music scene. And while the model we've been using under Tangible Media as a large publishing operation hasn't worked, there's absolutely models out there that can work. You know, if we were to, for example, you're going to Tokyo real soon, right? Street press all on the streets of Tokyo.
Huge.
You head to Sydney, you head to Melbourne, the States, London. Street press is part of the environment, you know.
Big populations.
Big populations, true, but I mean the beginnings of all the magazines we love in this country, from, you know, Real Groove to Rip It Up, Groove Guide. This is street press we're talking about. That's how it begins, and I just think that you need new models for this. It seems that in the wake of this, it's sort of been framed up in terms of old media versus new media, and I don't think that's the argument here. You know, your breakfast show is a great case in point. You know, radio has its challenges, and what you've done is you've supplemented that with all the best of social networking, and that's the solution here. You know, it's not about saying, you know, it's the rise of the so-called amateurs in the form of blogging or so on. It's marrying the best of both worlds, you know, and street press is an important part of that. I just think you need it needs to return to its roots. It needs to be done, you know, smaller operations.
I guess maybe it's difficult for you to speak on this, but it almost feels like Tangible was the record label, the old school record label, not knowing how to perhaps take on the new landscape.
I think they've given it a good shot. They've definitely, you know, our lifeline has been extended multiple times, you know, and it can't be any fun seeing a title under your roof that should be paying its way not quite getting there, because it's important to note that we were having a good crack at this. You know, it wasn't some kind of horrible loss leader. That really wasn't the case at all.
But
I do think,
as editor, had you noticed that the pages weren't being filled with advertising?
You'd be surprised, actually. In the past 3 weeks, we've had some of our biggest weeks this year. But truth is, going into it right now, this is the lean season as far as big live shows go. It'll pick up again, I guess, around August. But that was always going to be a challenge heading into the winter months, because street press, absolutely, that's how you stay on the street. You need those dollars coming through to pay those salaries and distribution and all of that.
But wouldn't it be fair to say, I mean, street press is a nice idea, but no one's ever going to get into that business to make a few bucks and live a good lifestyle, are they? I mean,
well, I don't think anyone's going to get into music criticism or music writing for that reason either, but there's a whole lot of passion involved, and it can be done the right way, so people are paid somewhat.
Yeah.
And a publication stays on the street, because in the wake of this, when push came to shove and the news went out there and the press releases and so on, you'd be amazed of how, I guess, how many people are sort of coming to us saying, what can we do? You know, like, is there a counter offer? Is there something we can do at this stage in the game? And last night, as I was signing off on what was to be our last issue ever, issue 371, Vincent actually came to me and said, there's an offer on the table, and it was a matter of altering the cover copy. Actually, if you pass this over to you, yeah, I don't have the physical edition because it's going to be with me this morning. But,
David Dallas,
PNC interviewing his label mate, David Dallas. So it's a beautiful looking issue.
Yeah,
really and it was a matter of just making a few changes to sort of say, hey, listen, last minute as we went to press, there's someone that wants to make this thing fly. You know, I mean,
so we don't know who that someone is yet.
We don't, and I don't know anything about the terms of this, or you know where it's going to move to, what it could entail.
Whether or not it's another publisher or someone who's in a completely different business but wants a street
all
press.
Of that. But Groove Guide is 7 years deep. There's there's currency in that name and the team of writers that it's put together. You know,
it is always a bummer though that when something fails and falls over. A lot of people come out of the woodwork and go, "Oh man, it was so good and everything," but and then you want to turn around and say, well, where were you? You know, where were you with your advertising dollars to help us keep going when we were around?
Well, listen, promoters and record companies have been, that's how Groove Guide has stayed in business. You know, not brand advertising. It's absolutely about the bread and butter of what Groove Guide is about, because they have a stake in our future.
But there should be shoe retailers and there should be fashion, they're barkers or whatever, whoever they should be advertising.
Oh, there was some of that kind of advertising come through, but
alcohol brands, they should all be.
Yeah, alcohol brands are part of the equation, but first and foremost, Groove Guide is street pressed. It's about what to see and do on the street tonight. It's about live music. So first and foremost, our territory was promoters, and local promoters were always behind us. That's why there's so many shows that Groove Guide's presented over the years, and you always see them at the back,
So even if there's not a Groove Guide in the future, there will have to be something, right? I mean,
I don't doubt it. I actually got an email overnight from one of our writers saying, I drafted this email a while back. I've been thinking, how do we go it alone? How can we get a crew of writers together and do this on the cheap? This will come along in some form, if not under the banner of Groove Guide, which it's looking like that could well happen now, under another banner. In tandem with other forms of media, there's absolutely a role for street press in this country.
So, what would be your ideal scenario? If you were starting one from scratch right now, how would you do it?
Well, first and foremost, you'd want an angel investor, right? Ideally, you'd have someone with a passion for music, and what we've done with Groove Guide, with those deep pockets that you need to get you through leaner months, and commitment to the cause, But I think as far as the
but would there be more of an emphasis online as opposed to the physical copy, or
it'd be in tandem, same deal, I mean, maybe it'd be something where you could team up an existing website with street press, so that way you already have a really strong, vibrant online model, and you match that with what Groove Guide does. But I think in terms of the content, the writers, the designer, all the people, all the personnel, I think we were doing a damn good job of it, So I think you just need to do it under, as a smaller operation, so there's less overheads, Keep it, cheap and cheerful. Maybe different paper stock. Maybe limit your distribution. Possibly it's something which for now will be an Auckland Wellington proposition.
A dedicated salesperson
most
to the
definitely.
task as well?
Most definitely. Emily Gavorka, who's our salesperson, is the heart and soul of this magazine. You need someone that's talking with promoters every day, that has their finger on the pulse of what's happening. You need someone that's in amongst it and advocating for you day to day.
That totally lives the brand.
That lives the brand, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's sad anyway. I mean, as you say, I mean, there could be a silver lining.
Yeah, there could be a part two to this, but regardless, this issue right here, which will be on the streets from this afternoon onwards, this will be our last issue with Tangible Media. There's no doubt about that. So, 371 issues deep into this. That's us. But I tell you, we've done this the right way. We've had a new designer, Frances Bishop, who's been with us since earlier this year, and she knocks it out the park every week. And she's gone to town this week with a sort of a pop art Liechtenstein style issue, and it looks $1 million.
Well, yeah, I'd love to keep you around on the show, you know, and continue the imaginary groove guide.
Yeah, that's right. I tell you, I'm looking to stay in music. I love it with all of me. So I'm certainly looking for work that involves music locally, without a doubt. And then I
turn around and say, well, I can't pay you, bro.
I can't pay you, bro.
Isn't that the story of New Zealand? Press.
It can be done. It can be done. But yeah, those
help me make my music video. I can't pay you, bro. You know.
But it could be a step in the new direction. You know. Yeah, you're right. It's a challenge, but it can be done. Cool. You know, and there'll be new models that come along that work for what we've been doing, and I truly believe that there'll be another chapter to this.
All right. Sam Wicks, This Week in Groove Guide, signing off. Thanks very much. Cheers.
My pleasure.